Hello and welcome to Unreal Made Easy, and in today's tutorial, this is if you're a complete beginner and you've never really dealt with Unreal Engine before. We're going to go over three basic things here. One of the things we're going to go over is going to be the UI, Unreal Engine UI basics. Then we're going to go into a little bit of object manipulation, and then finally we're going to finish out with changing starting points and starting points within the editor, such as pawn changes, start area starts, and let's not waste any time and let's go ahead and begin. UE5 UI Basics. Loading default UI. In the event that you have a bunch of tabs up and you want to load the default settings, simply go to Windows, go to Load Layout, and then next, Default Editor Layout. This will allow the layout to go back to its original defaults. Moving tabs. Did you know you can take their tabs and customize your events by merely just dragging and dropping and changing the locations, like so. And of course, you can resize as well. Finding lost tabs. So, and within your project, there's going to come times where you may have accidentally closed a tab. You can simply go to the Windows, and the tabs will be listed here. So in this instance, I'm missing my World Settings tab. By selecting it and checking it, it'll pop up. If you look back, you'll see the check that indicates that we have our World Settings tabs. Change default open locations. So when at the default editor settings, once you go, you can open up your blueprints and it'll open the tabs right on top of each other. So we can okay, so that's there, open tab. So instead of having it open up and then you have to readjust and drag and drop, what you can do is you can go to Editor, Editor Preferences, and then under General and Appearance, where it says Asset Editor Open Location, you can change the Start Open Location to the main window. Close that out. And then you can, once you double click and open up your different blueprints, they will open within the top tabs at the top. More viewable space in the viewport. Okay, you can also take the tabs and by right-clicking, you can dock them into side panels. Right-click and then dock in side panels, and then they will have they will undock as you click on them from the side. Now, in order to undo this, just do the same thing and reverse the order. Important screenshot controls. By selecting F11, you can go to widescreen mode in the editor. You can also, by selecting F9, you can take a screenshot. Screenshots will appear in the lower right-hand corner, and then that will be the default location. Now, sometimes in the editor, you may want to highlight something or something is more viewable. You can actually remove the UI's, the editor widgets by selecting G. That'll temporarily make the visibility of the widgets and different things that you have. Changing lighting in the scene. By selecting Control L, you can actually move the mouse around and you can change and alter the position of the directional lighting in your scene. Viewport Maneuvers. By holding on the right mouse button, you can use the WASD keys to move around the viewport. Now, you can also use the Q and E keys, so Q to go down and E to go up, to move on the different axes to view the viewport. Now, you can also use the mouse scroll to roll back the mouse scroll to slow down, or roll it forward to speed up. Now, you can also bookmark your locations. So, for example, You can use numbers 1 through 9 by hitting Control 1 for the first location, Control 2, Control 3, and we'll do a wide shot, Control 4. In order to access these back again, all you have to do is hit the corresponding numbers with the control keys that you set. So 1, location 1, location 2, location 3, location 4. Object manipulation. By selecting an object with left click, you can use the WER keys to change the widget. So for the W key, we're going to have the movement on the different axes. We're going to have the E gadget, which is going to be the rotate. And then we're going to have the R, which will change the actual size of your object. And Control Z to undo. Now, with the object selected, you can also duplicate the object by merely selecting Alt and then using the left mouse button and then dragging. And on release, you can continue to do that to make more and more copies of particular objects. Next, finding objects in the viewport. Now, if you're when you're inside of the outliner, you can actually, if you don't know what certain objects are or where they are, you can left click and hit the F key to zoom into that particular object. Select an F. Let's say once you find your object, you want to find the actual location of its blueprint. By selecting Control B, it'll browse right to your content folder here, and it'll show you the exact location of the actual mesh in case you need to open it for later. If you have an object that is up in the air, you can actually use the N key, which will drop it down to its next, to whatever level is beneath it. It could be a floor, a table, a chair, or whatever mesh is beneath. Next, moving with objects. By holding down Control and Shift, you can grab, left click, and drag, and your camera will move with that object in the space. Next, you can also copy attributes. Now, this is simply done like, say for instance, that we have the location of this particular object within the space. Within our details panel, if you look here, we've got all these different panels that are highlit. So in this instance, I'm going to right click and then copy. And then now I have all these attributes right here. So if I move this object, let's say I move it over here, right? Well, what I can do is I can go back because its location has changed. I can right click and I can select paste, and it'll put the object back in its original location. Now, throughout many parts of the editor, you can copy and paste into each of these panels and do it for other attributes, not just only for location. Merging objects. All right. One of the things we can do is, if we want, we can create a new object by merging them together. So if we take these two objects here, we can put them together. And then while one is highlighted, holding down Control and left mouse button, we can select both objects. Then in the upper, at the top, we can grab in the under actor tab, we can go and we can merge these two actors. Once we merge these two actors, we can call them, give them a name, and we can create this object here within the content folder by hitting save. And now what we can do is we'll have a new object. So we can separate these two here and go back to our content folder, and we can drag and drop. And now we have this object that is a new object that was merged from two other objects. Personalized start point. So before we start, first thing we're going to need to do is create two things. We're going to create a new level. We could do the basic one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hit save. Give it a name. For instance, we'll call this playground. Next, with this playground, we're going to have to go back to our content drawer. Go to third person. go to blueprints, and we're going to create one more character blueprint. So we're going to do a simple one. We're going to just simply highlight it, select Control D, and we're going to call this BP underscore man. That'll be our man character. And we can open him up. And we're just going to go ahead and we're going to change the skeletal mesh here just to make it a different skeletal mesh. Browse to it. And then we're going to select the Manny. Close the content drawer. Change the skeletal mesh. And now compile and save. In the viewport here, you can see now it's a man skeleton. Okay, close that out. Now, we're going to go back to our original level. We're going to go to our recent levels, which is going to be the third person map. And what we can do from here is change the editor start location. So every time you open the editor, a new project, it's going to start you out in this third person map. Instead of opening up in the default every time you open the editor and going to the third person map, you can actually select edit, project settings, and then go to maps and modes. And then under maps and modes, under default maps for the editor startup, you can actually change the startup to the one we just created, which was the playground. Here in the same area, we can also change the actual starting pawn, the starting character. Instead of using the default Quinn, we can open up this in the same area under default modes, under game modes. Instead of using the default pawn class as the third person, we can change it to the BP man character we just created. Close that, save. And then what we can do is we can exit the editor, and when we reopen the editor, we'll have a different default character. So we'll start with this right here. This is the default character. And we can also change this default character in the level. So let's go to world settings. And instead of it being BP man, we can also change this to back to the third person. Hit stop. And then we're going to go ahead and hit play again. And now we're the Quinn. Okay, so let's go ahead and restart the editor. Okay, so as you can see, we were able to change the default start location to our playground level. And we also have changed our character to the Quinn. But we can always, again, we can always change the default pawn back to the man character. Escape. Select the third person game mode. Change the default pawn class under the world settings tab. BP man. Hit play. And now we're the male character that we just made. Event graph basics. Okay, here are some simple steps or simple tips for when you're beginning and dealing with the event graph. Now, for the first one, you can actually hold down the Alt key, and then you can do a left mouse button click, and that will disconnect the pin. Or you can hold down Control, grab and drag. So we'll go here. So we'll go back to the complete here, and drag and drop and connect to a different one. Now, the other thing we can do is we can highlight the wire, double click it, make something called a reroute node. And this reroute node can be altered and changed in order to make our blueprint a little bit neater. If you need to click back on this reroute node, just do a drag and highlight it. And then once it's highlighted, hover over it, and you can drag and move them. You can move that particular reroute node. Here, next, we can also do the same thing. We can do a drag, left mouse button held down and drag, highlight everything. And by hitting C, we can make a comment. Now, for the final tip, compile and save. Now for the final tip, we're going to go back to our playground setting. And what we can do for the final one is we can actually increase our editor's performance. So if you have a slower computer, one of the things you can do is this. Go up in the upper right hand corner under settings. Under the settings, we're going to select engine scalability. And then right here, you can actually change to the different settings. So the lower the setting, the better the performance. So if we look at the low here, it's just going to change it quite a bit. It's going to make everything look a little different. Now we can also go back to the higher settings. We'll go to Epic. And then now, obviously, the lighting, the clouds, and everything's going to have more detail. That concludes today's tutorial video. After this video, I'm going to put a link into another video with a simple blueprint you can start out with if it's your first time on Unreal. And I want to say, if you like it, like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.